Hi everyone, Lee Pacchia here, and you are watching Between the Lines, part of Fault Lines, look at the many cracks in America's criminal justice system. I'm joined today by Josh Kendrick. He's a Fault Line contributor and criminal defense attorney based in South Carolina. We're thrilled to have him join us. Josh, welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks, Lee. You too.
So you had an article that went absolutely crazy last week on Fault Lines. It got picked up on Facebook and it went viral. So I'm happy to talk to you about it. The headline here, let me just pull it up. It is South Carolina Legislature threatens Supreme Court Judge Don Beatty. And essentially what's happening is there's a dust-up between the state government and Don Beatty over whether he should be running the Supreme Court in the Chief Justice role. Is that what happened?
Yeah, there's, I guess, two parts to it. In South Carolina, our legislature, which is the General Assembly, they are the ones that select the judges in our judicial system. So kind of by the same token, they would pick which justice becomes the Chief Justice. And historically, it's always the most senior judge. So whoever's been on the court longest, reached the correct age, that's who's going to be named Chief Justice. They don't have any extra power. It's kind of a ceremonial job, but they are in charge of our judicial system here. So it's a pretty big deal.
So it's, as you said, it's a ceremonial role. What are they fighting about if it doesn't make a difference?
I think it's a message, and that was the point of the article. Judge Beatty has been involved in a couple of opinions and some other dust-ups down here that have made him unpopular with the legislature, it looks like. Definitely in that article, there's a couple of quotes from some of the legislators who say that. We're not happy with him.
Okay, let's unpack that. What are the decisions that made Don Beatty so unpopular down there?
There's three that we talked about in the article. One of them is a school district case that's been going on in South Carolina for about 2 decades. We've got an education system with a lot of rural schools that have just, over the years, become increasingly worse with education. At some point, nothing's going on. Nobody's fixing it. The school districts got together and they filed a lawsuit against the state of South Carolina, against the actual state legislature, to say you have to fix this. That case has been up and down the judicial system. It ends up in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules in favor of the elementary school kids, basically. And Justice Beatty was one of the people that was involved in that majority opinion and said you have to fix these schools. Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem like a very controversial opinion, but I think the legislature took issue at it.
It meant more work for them, that's for sure.
And that's probably the problem.
What are the other opinions that have people so pissed off?
The second one I talked about is really kind of boring. I don't know why anyone cared about it, but down here there's a closing fee that you can put on a car purchase for several $100s. Somebody bought a car, looked at it and said, well, I don't think you actually spent that money to do anything. I don't think it was fair you charged me for it. Filed a class action, won the case in front of the jury, got a couple $1 million. That also got upheld in the Supreme Court, and the legislature, I assume, wasn't happy about that. That one I don't know why they care about, but I'm imagining it has something to do with the lobbyists down there in Columbia.
Mm-hmm. And also, Judge Don Beatty is African-American. Not to put something into the story that's not necessarily there, but does that have anything to do with this here? Has there been an African-American judge in that role in South Carolina Supreme Court?
Once before, there has. You know, I don't know. I didn't mention a lot of that in my story because I want to give the legislature the benefit of the doubt. I don't think this is anything so malicious as racism. I think it's more egos. I think it's people drawing out their lines and saying you're not going to invade what we want to do as a legislature, and they're mad about it. I think also the third issue that I talked about in the article with the prosecutors down here might have been one of the big parts of what he's done to sort of tick people off.
What's the third part?
So a couple years ago, he was speaking at a prosecutors conference. We call them solicitors down here in South Carolina, but they handle our state level criminal cases. And he basically told them, we're tired of covering for you. If you do the wrong thing, if you don't disclose evidence, if you lie, if you intimidate witnesses, if you commit misconduct, we are going to take your bar license. I got to put that in the same category as the school children's case. That doesn't seem too controversial, A lot of the prosecutors I know and spend time with probably wouldn't have any issue with that because they're not engaged in that stuff. But it touched off a firestorm down here. Most of the solicitors signed on to a letter asking that he be recused from every criminal case, opinion columns in every newspaper. It was pretty.
How does a prosecutor object to something like that with a straight face?
I don't understand that, and I've had that debate with a number of prosecutors when it's come up, and told them basically what you just said. How do you not agree with what he said, and how do you also not look at it and say, well, I'm not doing that, so I don't have anything to worry about? I don't know, but they specifically talk about that in some of the news reports when this story was coming out last week. And I think there's still some hard feelings. The legislature here they like their prosecutors.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, when pushed, what do they say? We have a right to immunity from our bad acts. They got to come up with something, I guess, in their objections. I'm struggling. I guess I'm just not that creative a person. There's a reason I don't practice law, and we might be getting to it in this interview. What on earth do they say?
Well, a lot of them wrote these different letters and had these different. I don't really know. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. What they were basically saying is, we don't think he's giving us a fair shake because he said this, but I think that directly goes against what he in fact said, which was, if you're doing this, you're going to get in trouble. I think, and this maybe wasn't as big a focus of the article, but I think it comes from the same place that the legislature came from. It's these egos. Nobody likes somebody invading their territory, and they felt like Justice Beatty had done that. And I think he did, and I think he should have. I think he should have put him on notice.
Yeah, this guy sounds like a hero.
Our court is relatively conservative all around, so sure, he's a good justice. I myself don't agree with all of his opinions, but I don't agree with all of the court's opinions, period.
So walk us through the next couple steps here. How's this saga end? Does it end? Is this just going to keep going on and on and on? Are they going to eventually have someone else nominated, or is Don Beatty going to win out here?
It's going to come to a head probably here pretty soon. So the judge who's the current Chief Justice, Costa Placonis, he only has 1 year to serve because he's going to hit mandatory retirement at the end of this year. So they're going to decide this issue probably in the next few months. Justice Kittredge is the other judge whose name has been put out as chief judge. He was on the opposite side of Beatty in some of those cases, but he's not the most senior. And as I mentioned in the article, I think it was Senator Fair, a South Carolina senator, basically said, that's your tradition. That's not our tradition at the legislature. So I think they've sent a clear message. We're going to do what we want. And I guess when the election happens, we'll see which one of them backs up what they've said. I don't think Justice Beatty really can do much. He's prevented from even commenting on all this. So like most judges, he'll probably just take what comes.
Like all of us. Josh, fascinating article. Everyone, I really recommend you go check it out. We're going to include a link to his piece in the description for this video. Josh Kendrick, so glad to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us today, sir.
Thanks, Lee. Good to talk to you.
That's what we have for this week. If you'd like to see more of the stuff we're working on, you can find us on MimesisLaw.com under the Fault Lines tab. You can also see us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you liked today's program and you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. There is more good stuff coming. If you're listening to us on a podcast, do us a favor and go to iTunes and write us a positive review. It makes all the difference in the world. I'm Pacchia. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
That is right. It's actually it's a very interesting story from an IP angle, but also from a commercial angle. It's really miraculous what some of these drug companies have been able to do in terms of achieving 99% cure rates for hepatitis C, what was previously considered an uncurable condition, and requiring